di sa Paiwan na已经无力加嘎拉乌斯乌阿俩伊有因第三百万那已经无力加嘎拉乌斯乌阿俩伊有因
Java Javai, and welcome to In Taiwan We Speak, your audio guide to Taiwan's mind-blowing linguistic diversity. I'm Alexander Shin, and today in Taiwan we speak Paiwan, an indigenous language of Taiwan and the mother tongue of the Paiwan people. It's estimated that around 100,000 Taiwanese are Paiwan, which makes them the second largest indigenous group in the country. Their original homelands span the southern parts of the island, including Pingdong and Taidong counties. And dear listeners, if you've listened to our previous episodes on Paiwan, you'll know that in parts of southern Taiwan, Paiwan once served as a lingua franca, the main language of inter-ethnic communication. Now, to chat more about Paiwan, I am joined today by Yedda Ljeljeng lja Palemek, member of the Paiwan community, working on several language revitalization projects, specifically related to her native Paiwan language. Yedda, it's a real pleasure having you here.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here, too.
Just to give you some context, dear listeners, Yedda previously served as the CEO of the Indigenous Peoples Cultural Foundation, IPCF, and as a project manager at Indigenous Languages Research and Development Center. Now it's called Indigenous Languages Research and Development Foundation. So, Yedda, the declaration song that you brought to our studio in the beginning, please tell us more about it.
This song is called reporting song, like when you visit a village with a delegation and you start to sing this song and tell people that you're Paiwan. It's kind of a ritualistic song. Mm-hmm. So it's called U Ala Yoing. Why Yoing, actually, it's just, a meaningless, it doesn't really have semantics, but it's like a hello, hi, just like that. The visitors will stand up and tell who they're visiting, saying who we are. Yeah. So I am Paiwan, and I'm from the sacred mountain called Jagaraus. It's a self-identifying song. Mm-hmm. Maybe we can say that. Proudly tell people, the visitee, we're from the sacred mountain of the Jagaraus.
And how popular is it to declare that you are Paiwan when you visit someone?
In the past, from one of the legend stories, that this mother tell his sons to go to the village to find a wife. He's the future chief of the village, for example. And then he led a delegation and visited several villages. Everywhere he went, when he came to the entrance of the village, he started to sing this.
Oh, wow.
To tell people that, okay, I'm your people, I'm from where. The village people, they heard this song, they came out and then start to receive their guests.
Mm-hmm. So they know who they're meeting.
Yes, in the past, in the stories, it's kind of pretty beautiful. Mm-hmm. Right now, people don't do that, of course. If you pass a household, a door in the village, people just ask you if you have eaten. Kamanangan soon, something like that. They don't sing anymore.
Right. We've known each other for quite some time. I think at least 5 years, at least digitally.
Yes. It's not the first time we met. We met in a conference like this year.
You are now about to actually finish your program, which is Graduate School of Linguistics at the National Taiwan University.
Yes, I am. I will not say struggling because I love the subject. But, for people who have been through the process, they know how difficult it is. Exactly. You have been through it.
Yes.
So I have finished all the courses, and I'm just right now writing my thesis. In terms of my research, I'm specifically looking at the grammar of the language. It's also part of the language acquisition process where you have a clear grammar based on which you develop helpful teaching materials. Then you can use those materials in different domains to train the next generation. And then that's how you expect the language to continue. So my work at the moment is to build the grammar. And of course, before me, there have been a lot of people working on Paiwan language. So I'm sort of working based on their work and continuing further on. To be honest, we still need a lot of people, a lot of efforts, a lot of research into this language, not only Paiwan, but also other languages, basically to have a good foundation for the curriculum or teaching materials development.
Mm-hmm. And we'll speak a little bit more in the second part of our interview about Paiwan grammar. I know Paiwan has quite a system of grammatical affixes, right?
You're
for a lot of things. But before we go there, I would like to ask you about your name. Now, I've known you as Yedda. I've always thought it was a Paiwan name. But I recently, learned in one of your interviews that it's actually a Hebrew name. Although you did register it as an indigenous name on your ID, you were born with only Chinese name, right? Yaping.
Yes.
And you were basically asking your family for a Paiwan name, but they didn't give it to you. Why wouldn't they want to give you a Paiwan name? Why were you born with only a Chinese name? And how did you end up having a Hebrew name?
Well, the naming thing is very interesting. I was born in the 1970s. In the 1970s, my parents were probably in the 1950s, 1960s. That's where the government were telling people not to use their language because they want to have a unified state, and a unified language is a part of making that state happen. So a lot of indigenous languages were under, let's say, repression. They were not encouraged to be spoken. And indigenous naming, I should say Paiwan naming, we have a strict rules to follow. For example, when a child was born in the past, it was actually not the parents that gave the child name. The parents will have to consult the chief of the village and discuss with the elders. And the chief and elders will discuss a proper name for the baby, and that's how the baby got his name. Or another way of naming the baby is if there is a certain really unimaginable thing happening at that time, and the baby might get named like a tsulak, like a thunder. It had rain, huge rain, something like this. But in the 1970s, my parents were not encouraged to use the language. And in my generation, the parents will normally just register their babies with Chinese name, and the tradition of consulting chief, which was already weakened. So at that time, there was no discussion of my name. So it was just naturally for my family just to complete the official registration of the Chinese name. So I was called Wang Yaping for quite some time. And I didn't question it at all. Yeah. Through elementary school, under 12, through junior high until 15, I never questioned my name as Wang Yaping, and that's the name my family is the most familiar with. Even right now, my mom still calls me Yaping. That's how she know me. Yeah. But of course, when I grew older, I start to understand my own history, and I start to think of why is that so? I start to hear different things. And I actually get the name Yedda when I was in junior high school. Yes, I went to a 补习班, like a cram school outside regular school hours. And the teacher just gave me the name Yedda. So I call you Yedda. Okay. The reason why I keep Yedda is because through Yedda, I had a chance to have more contact with the outside world. When I say outside world, it's outside Taiwan, to learn more history about other people and also my own history, studying history in the Netherlands. People call me also Yedda. And interestingly, when I was about to graduate from Leiden University from my history degree, it was the Leiden University who asked if I want to use Yedda instead of my Chinese name in my certificate. And I said, wow, because they know I am indigenous. So they question why I should use a Chinese name. It was they asked me if I want to use Yedda and my indigenous surname. So I asked my mom, what is my surname? So now with surname for the Paiwan tradition, it's actually the name of the house. And since I am, the oldest, I should inherit the family name my father inherits from his father, which is Palemek. According to my mother, the last sound is like a glottal. So that's why I initially spelled with a Q at the end. Okay, so it's Yedda Palemek. So if you see my graduation certificate from the Institute of History from Leiden University in the Netherlands, it was Yedda Palemek, not the Chinese name. And that really pushed me further to think, why didn't I request to identify myself with my indigenous heritage? And I have to be asked by someone who think, since I'm indigenous, maybe I prefer that. So that's a really interesting twist.
Just didn't occur to you before. Right?
No. So luckily, people in Taiwan, there are some young people, they also question the same thing. My parents call me this, and why do I need to use a different name in public domain or what? So there was a lawsuit. I think a group of young people, they asked the district court in Taipei City about this naming issue. Very luckily last year, the court made a very positive verdict. They should be allowed constitutionally to use indigenous name without the need of referring to a Chinese name. That's really a progress.
So before that, Mandarin had to be provided alongside.
Yes,
right?
Thank you for filling that up.
Yeah.
Yes, there was this part of history where you only have Chinese name, and then you can have indigenous name, but you must have the Chinese characters. That's the point. And the Chinese characters must come from the officialized dictionary.
Right.
Yeah. And just recently, that was also revoked. Now you can have your indigenous name and written in your own script. So after that law was passed in the legislative yuan, I immediately went to the local household office to change my name. So my official name on my ID card is Yedda Ljeljeng lja Palemek. Interesting. First, Yedda is the name that has brought me to this new awareness, contact with outside world where I see myself better, the knowledge I gain from outside world. And Ljeljeng is the name of my Qidung. Qidung is a great-grandmother, so the mother of my grandmother. I saw her when I was young, and she actually had hand tattoos for Paiwan women in the past. The hand tattoos for Paiwan women are symbols of their status, but nowadays we don't have that anymore. The Japanese banned them. And ya is, let's say, case marker. Case marker is a functional word, and it means belonging to or of
like
someone.
Of the clan.
Yes, the clan. I would say house. So that's my father's house name, which he inherited from his father in Sisivan, in Chunri, in Gasuga Township. And the last thing about that name is I changed the Q to K because there is a KQ sound change. The southern you go, the K sound is getting dropped into a glottal. And that's why my mother, who is from Mudan, which is to the south of Chunri, where my father was from, they already dropped the K. They drop it, become a glottal stop. So I basically changed the spelling from Q to K. Yes. So that name tells a lot of story.
Yeah, it's quite a name. It's also quite a Game of Thrones name if you think in English terms, Yedda Ljeljeng of the House of Palemek.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Right. I'm sorry to say that. We're just normal family.
Right. And, well, you mentioned Chunri, right? Kasuga.
Yes.
You actually went there to research some of your family's history, the history of your house. You went there with your Paiwan teacher, if I'm not wrong.
Yes. Unfortunately, he passed away. I asked him, well, my surname was Palemek. Where can I find them? So he said, yeah, just follow me. So we went to the village. It was actually a little bit up the hill. Then we went there. There were quite a few families. And then because my teacher used to be the mayor of Pingdong, so he knows people and he knows how to socialize. So we just see people sitting there and then we just join. So this girl, she's from the Palemek family. Where is the Palemek house? And they say, yes, there used to be a Palemek house, but they already moved out. They went down to Gasuga. They went to another village, so they no longer live here. And An elder even woke me a bit and then point to the hill far away and said, we used to live there. So I didn't really find the place where the Palemek used to live because they already moved away and probably the land is given and shared by other families. But when that moment, that elder pointing to a certain hill and saying, we used to live there and that's where your ancestors do their agriculture, and it gave me some goosebumps. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I come from there.
Mm-hmm. And did you cross towards that hill then?
Sorry, no. But I bet hunters in the village still have some trails. They used to go there. I never tried. Yes, yeah.
And well, what role did Paiwan language play in your life? Did you have access to it? Did you grow up speaking it, or did you have to learn it? Tell me about your relationship with this language.
Wow, my relationship with this language also starts very late. I didn't grow up with this language. I grew up with Mandarin. And my Mandarin was quite good because I, represent my school, to participate in speaking contests, reading contests. So I didn't really learn anything. My parents, they spoke Paiwan. By the way, my birth father passed away when I was 16. So before that, when he and my mother were talking, they would use Paiwan. But to us children, it's always Mandarin. And it also happens at that time, my father's father, which is my grandfather, Paiwan, he passed away because of cancer. And my grandmother, she married a mainlander. Now, there were soldiers, they came after Second World War, so they settled here in Taiwan. So my grandmother married one such mainlander from Shandong province. We call him Ye. And of course, with him, we always had to communicate in Mandarin, in Chinese. So I basically, except for listening to parents or elders in the village speaking the language, I never once was asked to speak it, to use it. And there was a time I thought being indigenous is enough. I don't need to speak the language. I can still do well. I just need to, be a good person and know I'm indigenous. I don't hide my identity. Without being able to speak the language, it doesn't change that I'm indigenous. When I went to college, I was in the Department of Foreign Literatures and Languages, and I went to the Netherlands. I studied history. One of my teachers encouraged me. He said, why don't you write something about your own language? Why don't you write about your own literature? You must have a lot of stories to tell. And in the beginning, personally, I feel a little bit, annoyed by those questions. In my mind, I was saying, why do you assume that I need to do indigenous research because I am indigenous?
Right.
I can do other things. My first thesis was actually on a 17th century English Bible, for which I went to Manchester twice to the special collection to see it. I just want to prove that even being indigenous, I can do something outside indigenous. I want to prove my personal value, for example. I believe being indigenous without being able to speak the language does not affect or decrease any sense of identity. But I changed. I changed, I think, around the age of 35. And not only did I study this language very hard, I use every means that I have online or force my mother to talk to me. I participate in the language test every year. So right now I get a advanced level, which is not easy to do. But it doesn't really guarantee that I can talk fluently with elders. But it gives me some confidence, so I can actually speak much, much better than before. And during this process, I started to feel more and more indigenous, to be honest. I was saying, without being able to speak the indigenous language, it does not affect my identity. But being able to speak the language enhance your sense of being the member of this community, and you will want to do something for the community. You will want to know more. I mean, I also feel happier. I cannot really identify the source of this inspiration or epiphany, but I can feel the difference before when I could not speak, and right now I'm trying to learn very difficultly, and that change inside myself. And also I saw the change in the person that I interact with. Being indigenous and being educated abroad, having worked in Taipei, all these kind of things, it makes me a little bit different, yeah, from a lot of my friends in the villages. So they tend to see me
as an outsider.
That's it. Yes, she's from our village, but she's so different. When I was trying to learn the language, I went back to the village, I talked to my mother, I talked to our great aunt. One time, I make them laugh so hard because I spoke so poorly. But I can see that they're laughing, but they're so happy. Mm-hmm. And they also start to feel like speaking the language more. It's like they know the language, but they do not use it as much. Of course, they use it in their everyday language, but if they don't have to, they can use other languages. But right now, I feel that because I'm making the effort to learn this language, they also happily share the language with me and feeling the value of language. Mm-hmm. My mother, after my father passed away, married a non-indigenous person. That stepfather is really great. But because of that environment, she doesn't speak the language that much. But because of me forcing her to teach me the language, she starts to come to life, that part of her. I think this is so important when we talk about language revitalization with family being the most important domain. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of parents do not feel motivated enough. They are not encouraged enough to continue using the language with the kids because they are not supported in any way.
Mm-hmm. They don't see the value in it.
They don't, and they do not have the emotional support saying, even though it doesn't have economic value, but I see my kids, I see my grandkids, they are happily want to learn this. So there is a value in me trying to teach them, trying to make them continue the language, even though it doesn't bring me more money. But that part of happiness in life, I see that in my mom, in my grand aunt, and oh my God, I almost cry for that. It's really like the language has its own life. But if the people do not speak it, of course, it will die. And for people to speak the language, there are so many factors involved. And when we don't usually talk about the mental effects of that language use, to be able to speak your language is, I remember right now, Nelson Mandela once said, if you speak to a person in the language that he used, you're speaking to his heart. So that's the thing. Mm. Their heart comes to life because I force them to use the language to teach you more and more and more. Yeah.
That's a very beautiful story of your Paiwan language journey.
It's still ongoing.
Right. We did not end our chat with Yedda just yet. Join us next week as we continue our conversation about Paiwan and some linguistic fun facts behind this language. Thank you, Yedda, and thank you everyone for tuning in.